The exotic Marigold Hotel, PG-13. Now, that's not a rhetorical question. I genuinely want to know why. Why is it that if it's not a local film, it's PG-13, and if it's a local film, why is it R21? And the second point, and this is the main question, why do we all accept that double standard, that disparity of treatment between a foreign and a local artist? Why do we all stand for it? I'll end my bit here and then we'll have a discussion later. Thank you very much.
My wife always reminds me that my job as a moderator is not to answer the questions. But I can't help saying to Ken that there is a difference between the English film and a locally made film. It's okay for a bigoted English woman to insult the Indian because it's got nothing to do with us. And after all, it just confirms our view that the Brits are racist people, which may in itself be a form of racism. but for a ethnic Chinese Singaporean to insult the Indian, although it's meant to be a satire, it's meant to send a message that the Chinese shouldn't do this. But some Singaporeans are very dense, Yeah, really, we are very dense. We are very dense. We might not see that it's a satire. They might think that the film is intended to insult the Indians. But anyway, my job is to introduce the next speaker. The next speaker is a very good friend of mine, Arun Mahizhnan. Arun and I go back a long way. In his first incarnation, the Hindus believe in incarnation, right? In his first incarnation, he was an award-winning producer of documentaries for what is now MediaCorp. Then in his second incarnation, he was the director for public affairs of Mobil Oil. And in the second incarnation, he founded what is today the Festival of Art. Yeah, people may not remember that FOA, as we come to know it, started as a private sector initiative. So if you want to find out who is the grandfather of the Festival of Art, it's actually Arun. Then in his third incarnation, he really made money. He became a good Singaporean. He was the CEO of Hill and Knowlton. And then he reached midlife and had a midlife crisis. Many men suffer from a midlife crisis, and many men in midlife crisis, they acquire a mistress. Or so I'm told, I have no personal experience, but I'm told. But in Arun's case, he decided to leave the world of money and to seek guruhood. So when I was director of the Institute of Policy Study, he asked me whether he could join the Institute of Policy Study as a research fellow. So I said to him, I don't think this is a good move from you, because first I cannot match your salary, and you are a private sector person making good money. Why do you want to join a poor think tank? He said, money is not an issue because he will live on the moral earnings of his loyal wife, and that he wants to devote the rest of his life to research. And he's really done a very good job at IPS. He was the deputy director for many years, and now in his current incarnation, he's a senior research fellow at IPS. Arun, please come and enlighten us.
Good evening, friends. I want to thank Prof. Koh for the introduction just now. He always sets me up and raise your expectations, which I rarely have ever fulfilled in any talks I've given. But I'm not going to thank you for inviting me, because this evening I just discovered, even though I would be the token Indian on the panel, I wasn't his first choice. And I think by what I'm going to say, I might disappoint Prof. Koh even further. Before I start, I want to ask two questions. and again by show of hands, how many of you, and listen carefully, how many of you have never seen pornography? Tommy, there's none. Second, how many of you have never heard hate speech or bad speech or that kind of, derogatory speech? Have never heard that? Okay. And there's a question for you, Prof. How many RA films did you see after you made it possible? You did many, okay. I think what is at the heart of this evening's discussion is the role of the government censor for the good of the public. Now, censorship is as old as the hills. Socrates was made to drink hemlock for corrupting the minds of young people. That's in 339 BC. Actually, the word censor, I'm told, can be traced back to an even further period, to the office of the censor in Rome in around 440 BC. Now, governments before and since have considered censorship as a bounden duty of good governance for the good of the public. No government has ever abandoned censorship completely. Every government has tried to keep some form of censorship according to its perceived need for public good. Censorship is not the brazen or the blunt instrument of authoritarian states as many people think. Even governments in the most liberal democracies have not disavowed censorship. In my time, at your age, I'm talking about the students, reading Lady Chatterley's Lover was the ultimate thrill. And when I didn't have to pretend to any literary merits, it was Playboy magazine, which was smuggled across the causeway. It was available in Johor Bahru for the asking, not because they were more liberal, but worse enforcers. Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence was actually published in 1959 in New York, and a case was made, and the Federal Appeal Court threw out the case and allowed the publication. The following year, Penguin published in Britain the kind of paperback version. And again, the British government took the case to the court. And the young government lawyer asked, "Is it a book you would even wish your wife or your servants to read?" Completely oblivious to the irony of his question. For those of you who haven't read it, the protagonist was a gardener who was humping the master's wife. The British court gave it a stamp of approval, and it became a bestseller, presumably bought by a lot of gardeners and wives. So long before Ken Kwek and his unholy allies embarked on this journey, your spiritual allies like D.H. Lawrence have had to tussle with the government censor, who always bravely tries to prevent the pollution of the public sphere and the corruption of the morals of a good society. But Ken's sin is much more pernicious than polluting the moral standards of Singapore. Today, it is okay to have an affair with your master's wife. You can certainly write about it. You don't even have to have any literary merits as a saving grace. The internet has made all that possible, and we take it in our stride. But Ken is on the verge of damaging, if not destroying, racial harmony in Singapore. At least that is